Thank you for allowing my voice to be your company tonight. It means more than it needs to, and nothing more is required of you now. You are here inside an airport that has gently emptied itself of urgency. It is late, well past the final rush of departures, and not yet close to the first morning arrival. The terminal is open, quiet, and steady. Overhead lights remain softly lit, not bright, not dim, simply consistent. Rows of empty seats wait without expectation. The long hallways stretch on without asking you to follow them anywhere. Between flights, time loosens its grip. Nothing is scheduled to happen soon. The departure board shows only distant hours, the kind that do not belong to this moment. A low announcement drifts through the air, indistinct and unimportant, meant for no one in particular. It fades on its own, leaving the space exactly as it was before. You can imagine sitting comfortably here, feeling the calm neutrality of a place that continues without needing anything from you. No decisions to make, no one calling your name. Just the quiet rhythm of a space doing what it always does through the night. I will stay with you here. There is no rush to listen closely, and no need to hold on to every word. If it feels right, allow yourself to settle into this moment and remain with me a little longer. You are welcome to simply rest in the sound of this place, letting the story move at its own unhurried pace. The airport keeps its gentle order around us. The night stretches on, calm and unchanged. And you are free to stay, to relax, and to let this quiet waiting carry you wherever rest begins to take over. The terminal stretches in both directions, its polished floors reflecting the overhead lights in soft pools of amber glow. Gate after gate lines the corridor, each one dark, each one closed. The screens above them display nothing immediate, only flight numbers for departures that belong to tomorrow morning, hours away still. The chairs sit in neat rows, upholstered in dark blue fabric, their armrests smooth from years of brief contact. Not a single bag rests on them now, not a single jacket draped over the back. Along the wide windows that face the tarmac, the glass holds the faint impression of the night outside. Runway lights blink in distant patterns, red and white, steady and automatic. A plane sits motionless at a far gate, its engines silent, its cabin dark. The ground crew finished their work long ago. Everything that needed to happen has already happened. What remains is simply the space itself, holding its form through the hours when most people are elsewhere. The air inside carries a particular quality, neither warm nor cool, but temperate in the way that large buildings maintain when they are nearly empty. It moves gently through the ventilation system, a low hum that never changes pitch, never grows louder or softer. It is the sound of a place functioning exactly as it should, requiring nothing, offering nothing except its own steady presence. A cleaning cart appears far down the corridor, pushed by a figure in a dark uniform. The cart moves slowly, its wheels producing a soft, rhythmic sound against the floor. The person guiding it does not hurry. There is no reason to hurry. The night shift here is not about speed. It is about maintaining the space while it rests between the chaos of daylight operations and the arrival of the first early travelers. The figure pauses near a row of seats, empties a small waste bin, replaces the liner with careful hands, and continues on. The cart's wheels sound again, that same gentle rhythm, moving further away now, becoming part of the background rather than the focus. Eventually, it turns a corner and disappears from view entirely. The sound fades. The corridor returns to its previous stillness. Above, the departure board flickers once, updating a single line of information. A gate number changes. A departure time shifts by 15 minutes. The board settles again into its static display. No one stands beneath it, checking for updates. No one needs to. The flights it shows are not yet close enough to matter. Near the windows, a row of charging stations stands empty, their outlets waiting, their small LED lights glowing green to indicate availability. A forgotten charging cable lies coiled on one of the seats nearby, left behind by someone who has already boarded. Already departed, already moved on to wherever they were going. It will stay there until morning, when someone from the day crew will collect it and place it in the lost and found. For now, it simply exists, overlooked and unimportant. The terminal's ceiling rises high above, its structure hidden by panels and lighting fixtures. Somewhere up there, air moves through ducts, filtered and recirculated, keeping the temperature constant. Somewhere further still, the building's mechanical systems hum along in their continuous operation, unseen and unheard from down here. The airport functions on layers of order, each one invisible to the casual observer, each one maintaining its task without fanfare. A security checkpoint stands dark at the far end of the terminal, its lanes roped off, its scanners powered down. During the day, lines form there, travelers removing shoes and belts, placing bags on conveyor belts, moving through the process with varying degrees of patience. At this hour, it is simply another empty space, its purpose suspended until morning. The metal detectors stand silent. The bins for personal items sit stacked and unused. Further along, a small shop sits behind a metal gate, its interior lights turned off. Through the gate's diamond-shaped openings, shelves of magazines can be seen, their covers facing outward in neat rows. Candy bars line the counter in colorful wrappers. Travel-sized bottles of lotion and shampoo stand arranged by height. Everything waits in perfect stillness, preserved in the state it was left when the last employee locked up hours ago. The floor reflects all of this in muted tones, its surface smooth and unscuffed in most places, slightly worn in the areas where foot traffic concentrates during busy hours. Near the gates, scuff marks tell stories of hurried steps, dragged luggage, children running despite their parents' warnings. But now, in the stillness, even those marks seem like memories rather than evidence of current activity. A water fountain stands against one wall, its basin clean, its button waiting to be pressed. A small puddle has formed beneath it, likely from earlier use, and it sits there undisturbed. slowly evaporating in the controlled climate. No one comes to wipe it away. No one notices it at all. It simply exists, a tiny detail in a space full of tiny details that accumulate into a larger sense of place. The windows reveal only darkness beyond, punctuated by those steady runway lights and the occasional glow from a distant building on the airport grounds. The tarmac stretches out there, vast and empty, its painted lines invisible in the night. During the day, it is a place of constant motion, planes taxiing, ground vehicles moving between gates, crews signaling to pilots with bright orange wands. Now, it holds nothing but space and the memory of that activity. Inside, the quiet deepens, not because anything has changed, but because familiarity with the environment allows the mind to stop searching for variation. The hum of the ventilation becomes part of the baseline, noticed only when attention turns toward it deliberately. The distant footsteps of the cleaning crew, now somewhere far along another corridor, become expected rather than surprising. The space settles into itself, and anyone present settles with it. A man walks through this terminal now, moving without particular destination. His name is Michael, though no one here knows that, and no reason exists for them to. He wears the uniform of the airport staff, a dark polo shirt with a small embroidered logo, dark pants, comfortable shoes designed for standing and walking through long shifts. His badge hangs from a lanyard around his neck. His photo on it, taken years ago when he first started working here, his face slightly younger then. His expression more uncertain. He has worked the overnight shift for a long time now. Long enough that the unusual hours no longer feel unusual. Long enough that the quiet terminal feels more familiar than his apartment does during the day. When he tries to sleep while the world outside moves through its normal rhythms. He prefers it here, if he is honest with himself. Prefers the lack of crowds, the absence of urgency, the way nothing unexpected tends to happen between the last departure and the first arrival. Michael carries a small tablet in one hand, its screen showing a checklist of tasks he moves through each night. Gate inspections, security walkthroughs, coordination with the cleaning crew, monitoring the few passengers who occasionally pass through on red-eye connections. Most nights, the checklist is merely a formality. Everything stays in order. Everything continues as it should. He pauses near gate 24, glances at the empty waiting area, notes that the chairs remain neatly arranged, that no trash has accumulated on the floor, that the departure screen above the gate shows the correct information for tomorrow's first flight. He taps a box on his tablet, marking the inspection complete, and continues walking. His footsteps produce a soft, regular sound, the rubber soles of his shoes meeting the polished floor in an unhurried rhythm. He does not walk quickly. There is no reason to walk quickly. The night will last exactly as long as it needs to last, and rushing through it accomplishes nothing except making the hours feel longer. Near a row of windows, he stops and looks out toward the tarmac. A service vehicle drives past in the distance, its headlights cutting through the darkness. illuminating the painted lines on the pavement for a brief moment before moving on. Michael watches it disappear around a corner, its taillights fading, and then turns back toward the terminal. He notices the charging cable on the seat nearby. He picks it up, examines it briefly, recognizes it as the standard kind that works with most phones, and slips it into his pocket. Tomorrow, when he finishes his shift and stops by the office before heading home, he will drop it in the bin where lost items accumulate. Someone might claim it. Most likely, no one will. Such things happen constantly in airports. People leave behind chargers, books, water bottles, small items that seem important until they are forgotten in the rush to board. Michael does not judge this. He understands how easily things slip away when attention is divided among boarding passes. Gate numbers, departure times. The mental calculation of whether there is enough time to get coffee before boarding begins. He has watched thousands of people move through this terminal over the years, and he has seen the small ways that travel pulls focus away from details. He continues walking, moving past the darkened shops, past the closed restaurant with its chairs stacked on tables inside, past the restrooms where motion sensor lights wait to activate if anyone enters. The terminal stretches longer than it initially appeared, its corridors connecting to other corridors, its gates numbering into the 40s. Though the higher numbers belong to a different concourse that Michael's route does not include tonight. At gate 31, he pauses again. The waiting area here is identical to all the others. The same blue chairs, the same arrangement, the same view of the tarmac through large windows. Yet something about this particular gate has always felt slightly different to him, though he could not explain why if asked. Perhaps it is simply that he tends to pause here more often than at other gates, and that repetition has created a sense of familiarity that exceeds the ordinary. He sits in one of the chairs, the same chair he often chooses when he takes these brief rests during his rounds. The seat supports his weight comfortably. The arm rests at a height that feels natural for his arms. He sets the tablet on the chair beside him and looks out the window. The runway lights blink in their pattern, on, off, red and white, marking the edges of the pavement, guiding planes that are not currently there. The pattern never varies. It has blinked in this exact sequence for years, for decades, probably, maintained by systems that check themselves and report any malfunction automatically. Michael finds something quietly reassuring in that consistency, in the idea that some things simply continue without intervention, without thought, performing their function because that is what they were designed to do. His shift started at 11 in the evening. It will end at 7 in the morning, when the day crew arrives and the terminal begins its transformation back into a busy, crowded space. He has 5 more hours remaining. 5 hours of walking these corridors, checking gates, ensuring that the overnight quiet does not hide any problems that need addressing. In his years of doing this work, he has rarely found problems. The night takes care of itself, for the most part. He thinks about this sometimes, about how the airport becomes almost 2 different places depending on the time of day. During daylight hours, it is defined by movement, by the thousands of people passing through, by announcements and boarding calls, and the constant flow of arrivals and departures. At night, it is defined by stillness, by the absence of that movement, by the way the building seems to exhale and settle into itself. Both versions are real. Both serve their purpose. Michael simply happens to know the nighttime version better, to feel more at home in it, to understand its rhythms and its sounds and its particular quality of emptiness that is not the same as loneliness. A faint sound reaches him from somewhere distant, the mechanical whir of an escalator running despite carrying no passengers. The escalators here operate continuously, their moving stairs ascending and descending whether anyone stands on them or not. During the day, they are full, travelers riding up from the baggage claim level or down toward the train that connects the con. At night, they move empty, their motors humming, their steps clicking at the top and bottom where the mechanism cycles them around. Michael stands, picks up his tablet, and resumes walking. He passes gate 32, gate 33, gate 34. Each one the same, each one empty, each one waiting for tomorrow. The departure boards above them glow with information about flights that will leave in the morning. Destinations like Denver and Phoenix and Seattle. Cities he has never visited, despite working in a place where people travel to them daily. He has thought about traveling, about using his employee benefits to fly somewhere on his days off, but the thought always remains just that, a thought rather than a plan. There is something comfortable about staying in one place, about knowing the shape of his days, even if those days occur during hours when most people sleep. Travel introduces variables, requires adaptation, demands a kind of energy that he is not certain he possesses anymore. The corridor curves slightly, leading toward another section of gates. Michael follows it, his pace unchanged, his attention diffused across the space around him without focusing sharply on any single element. This is how he moves through the night, observing everything and nothing, present without being hyper-aware, allowing the environment to simply be what it is. Near gate 38, he notices that one of the overhead lights flickers very faintly, barely perceptible unless someone looks directly at it. He makes a note on his tablet to report it in the morning. Maintenance will replace the bulb during the day, during a window when the gate is not actively boarding passengers. The flicker is minor, not urgent, but worth addressing before it becomes a more obvious problem. He wonders sometimes about the people who will sit in these chairs tomorrow, waiting for their flights. Wonders where they are coming from, where they are going, what occupies their thoughts as they wait. Business trips and family visits and vacations and relocations. All of those journeys compressed into the same physical space. Strangers sitting side by side for brief periods before scattering to their separate destinations. The overnight hours remove all of that human complexity, leaving only the infrastructure. The skeleton of the operation without the life that fills it during waking hours. Michael appreciates this simplification. It allows him to focus on the space itself rather than navigating the emotions and urgencies of travelers who are often tired, often stressed, often looking for help with problems he cannot solve. He reaches the end of the concourse, where the gates terminate and the corridor widens into a small seating area with a view of the main terminal building across the way. Through the windows, he can see lights in distant offices where other overnight workers perform their tasks, keeping the airport operational even when most of it sits unused. Michael turns and begins walking back the way he came, retracing his route. He will cover this same ground several more times before his shift ends, walking the same path, checking the same gates, noting the same unchanging details. This repetition does not bore him. If anything, it provides structure, a framework that makes the hours move in an orderly fashion rather than stretching out into formless duration. As he walks, he allows his thoughts to drift, not toward anything specific, just a gentle wandering that mirrors the physical wandering of his patrol. He thinks about the dinner he ate before coming to work, a simple meal prepared at home and eaten while standing at his kitchen counter. He thinks about the book he has been reading slowly over the past few weeks, a mystery novel that he picks up for 20 minutes before sleeping each afternoon. He thinks about whether he needs to stop at the grocery store on his way home in the morning, trying to remember what remains in his refrigerator, whether he has enough coffee to get through the next few days. These are small thoughts, unremarkable thoughts, the kind that fill the quiet spaces between more pressing concerns. They suit the environment he moves through, where nothing demands urgency and everything continues at its own measured pace. The cleaning cart reappears in the distance, coming back along the corridor from the opposite direction. The same steady rhythm of wheels against floor. Michael raises a hand in a brief wave as the cleaner approaches. The cleaner, a woman named Rosa, though they have never formally introduced themselves, nods in return. They pass each other without speaking, both understanding that the night does not require conversation. That companionship can exist in these small acknowledgements without needing to extend further. Michael appreciates Rosa's presence, even though they rarely interact beyond these passing moments. Knowing that someone else occupies the terminal during these hours makes the space feel less isolated, less strange. They are both here, both moving through the same environment, both performing tasks that keep things running smoothly even when no one else is around to notice. He continues walking. Gate 36, Gate 35, Gate 34. The numbers descending now as he moves back toward the starting point of his route. The departure boards still show the same flights, the same distant times. Nothing has changed. Nothing will change for hours yet. Near Gate 30, Michael pauses and looks at his tablet, reviewing the checklist even though he knows he has completed every item multiple times already tonight. It is simply something to do, a way to structure the time, a confirmation that his presence here serves a purpose even during hours when that purpose feels abstract. He navigates to a different screen on the tablet, one that shows real-time data from various systems throughout the airport. Temperature readings from different zones, air quality metrics, power consumption levels. Status updates from security systems. Everything reads normal. Everything functions as designed. The airport hums along in its overnight mode, efficient and automatic, requiring minimal human intervention. Michael closes that screen and sets the tablet down on a nearby chair. He stretches his arms above his head, feeling the slight stiffness that comes from hours of slow walking broken by periods of standing still. His back carries a dull ache, nothing severe, just the accumulation of a shift spent on his feet. He has learned to accept this discomfort as part of the work, something that will fade once he gets home and lies down. Once sleep claims him and his body releases the tension it holds during waking hours. He sits again, this time in a different chair, facing a different angle of the same view. The tarmac, the distant lights, the dark sky above, holding no stars due to the ambient glow of the airport and the city beyond. Clouds likely obscure them anyway, though it is impossible to tell from here. Michael closes his eyes for a moment, not sleeping, just resting them, allowing the lids to block out the constant ambient light of the terminal. Behind his eyelids, he sees the afterimage of the overhead fixtures, faint geometric shapes that fade gradually as his eyes adjust to the darkness. He listens to the sounds around him, the ventilation system, the distant mechanical hum, the occasional creak of the building's settling sounds, so familiar that they barely register as sounds anymore. When he opens his eyes again, nothing has changed. The terminal remains exactly as it was. Time has passed, but time passing here does not look like anything, does not announce itself through visible transformation. It simply accumulates, second by second, minute by minute, until eventually the night will end and morning will arrive and the space will fill with people once more. He stands and picks up the tablet, continues walking. Gate 29, Gate 28, Gate 27. Each one a checkpoint on his route, each one offering the same view of emptiness and order, the chairs aligned, the floors clean, the screens displaying information that will matter tomorrow but does not matter now. At Gate 25, he notices a newspaper on one of the seats, left behind by a daytime traveler. He picks it up, glances at the date, confirms it is from today or technically yesterday now, since midnight has passed. The front page shows a headline about something political, something that seemed important enough to make the front page, but that Michael does not have the energy to engage with right now. He folds the paper and places it in a recycling bin near the gate. The restroom nearby catches his attention, and he decides to stop, more out of routine than necessity. Inside, the motion sensors detect his presence and activate the lights, their sudden brightness harsh after the softer illumination of the terminal. The space smells of cleaning solution, sharp and chemical, evidence that the night crew has already made their rounds through here. Michael washes his hands at one of the sinks, the water running cold at first, then warming slightly as he rubs soap between his palms. He looks at his reflection in the mirror above the sink, sees the face he has seen countless times, familiar to the point of being almost invisible. The fluorescent lights make his skin look slightly washed out, emphasize the lines around his eyes that have deepened over the years he has worked this shift. He dries his hands on a paper towel, disposes of it in the bin, and exits the restroom. The lights turn off behind him as the sensors detect the absence of motion. The terminal swallows him back into its dimmer, warmer atmosphere. Walking again, gate 24, gate 23. The route continues, predictable and unchanging. Exactly as it has been for years, exactly as it will be tomorrow night and the night after that. Michael knows every turn, every transition between carpeted areas and polished floors. Every spot where the ceiling height changes or where the corridor widens to accommodate additional seating. This knowledge does not make the space boring to him. Instead, it makes it comfortable, makes it feel like something he understands completely, something that holds no surprises or demands. The terminal at night is his territory in a way that few other places are, and he moves through it with the ease of someone who has long since stopped questioning whether he belongs here. Near gate 20A, digital display advertises a coffee shop that will open in a few hours, showing images of steaming cups and fresh pastries, prices listed beneath each item. The display cycles through several images, each one trying to appear appetizing. Though the artificiality of the lighting in the photographs makes the food look less appealing than it probably tastes. Michael has eaten at that coffee shop during his breaks, knows that the coffee is decent and the pastries are acceptable, neither exceptional nor disappointing. He wonders if the people who created these advertisements ever considered that someone would view them at this hour, when the shop is closed and the images serve no practical purpose. Probably not. The displays are designed for daytime travelers, for people with purchasing power and immediate hunger. The fact that they continue cycling through the night is simply an oversight, a consequence of programming that did not account for when the shop would actually be closed. Michael continues past the display, past more empty gates, past the point where his route began. He is completing another full circuit now, covering the same ground he has already covered multiple times tonight. The repetition is an intentional part of the job, ensuring that nothing goes unnoticed, that any change or problem reveals itself through its disruption of the expected pattern. But nothing disrupts the pattern tonight. Everything continues exactly as it should, as it almost always does, night after night after night. He reaches gate 17 and pauses, looking at the departure board above it. The flight listed is scheduled for 6:45 in the morning, a departure to Atlanta, in less than 6 hours. Passengers will begin arriving at this gate, claiming seats, checking their boarding passes, looking at their phones, drinking coffee from the shop that will have opened by then. The gate agent will arrive, unlock the podium, begin the boarding process. The plane will fill. The door will close. The aircraft will push back from the gate and taxi toward the runway. All of that will happen. But none of it is happening now. Now, the gate is simply a space defined by its potential rather than its current use, waiting quietly for its purpose to activate. Michael sits in one of the chairs here, allowing himself another brief rest. His tablet shows that it is nearly 3 in the morning. the deepest part of the night. The hours when even the city beyond the airport grows quieter. When traffic thins and most businesses close and the world enters a collective pause. He feels that pause here. In the terminal, in the way the air seems thicker during these hours, the way sounds travel differently. The way time itself seems to move more slowly. It is not unpleasant. It is simply different. A mode of existence that most people never experience because they are asleep during these hours, tucked away in beds, their consciousness suspended until morning returns. Michael chose this work partially because he struggled with sleep during conventional hours. Even before taking the overnight shift, he found himself lying awake at night, his mind refusing to quiet, his body refusing to relax into the oblivion that seemed to come so easily to others. The overnight work gave him permission to embrace that wakefulness, to stop fighting against it and instead use it productively. Now his sleep happens during the afternoon in a bedroom with blackout curtains that block the sun, with a fan running to create white noise that drowns out the sounds of the daytime world. It is not perfect sleep, rarely deep, often interrupted, but it is enough. He has learned to function on enough to stop pursuing the ideal rest that always seemed just out of reach. He thinks about this sometimes, about how his life has organized itself around this inversion, how he exists slightly out of phase with most of society, awake when they sleep, sleeping when they wake. It creates a certain distance, makes relationships difficult to maintain, limits his social interactions to the handful of other overnight workers he encounters in passing. But it also creates peace. The daytime world, with its demands and its noise and its constant stimulation, exhausts him in ways that the nighttime airport never does. Here, he can simply be present without having to navigate complex social dynamics, without having to respond to constant input, without having to maintain a version of himself that meets other people's expectations. The terminal accepts him exactly as he is. It requires nothing beyond his attention to basic tasks. His presence during the hours when someone should be present. His willingness to walk these corridors and confirm that nothing needs immediate intervention. Michael stands and resumes his route. Gate 16, Gate 15, Gate 14. The numbers continue to descend as he moves through the space, following the path his body knows by memory now, hardly needing to think about where to turn or when to stop. Near Gate 12, he encounters another member of the overnight staff, a younger man named David who works in a different section of the airport but occasionally passes through this area. They exchange brief greetings, a few words about how quiet the night has been, confirmation that everything is running smoothly. The conversation lasts perhaps 30 seconds before they continue in opposite directions, their interaction fulfilling the minimal social obligation without extending into territory that would require more energy or attention. Michael appreciates David's brevity, his understanding that the overnight shift is not conducive to lengthy conversations. They are colleagues in the sense that they work for the same organization during the same hours. But their relationship does not extend much beyond that, and neither of them seems interested in changing it. The corridor ahead curves slightly, leading toward a section of gates that Michael will reach in a few minutes. He knows what he will find there: more empty chairs, more dark departure screens that will activate in a few hours. More windows looking out onto the same view of tarmac and distant lights. The predictability is comforting rather than monotonous, a reliable structure that makes the hours feel manageable. He passes a water fountain, considers stopping for a drink, decides against it. His shift will end before he truly gets thirsty. Better to wait until he is home, where he can drink from a glass in his own kitchen, where the water tastes slightly different, filtered through his apartment building's system rather than the airport's infrastructure. Gate 11, Gate 10, Gate 9. The route continues its progression, winding through the terminal like a thread through fabric, connecting all the pieces into a coherent whole. Michael is that thread tonight, his presence linking the empty spaces, his attention holding them together even though they would continue existing perfectly well without him. He knows this, knows that the airport does not actually need him in any critical sense, that the automated systems and security measures would keep things running even if he called in sick, even if no one walked these corridors at all during the overnight hours. But knowing this does not diminish the value he finds in being here, in performing the role he has been assigned, in maintaining the routine that gives structure to his nights. At Gate 7, he pauses and looks at his tablet again, scrolling through the same information he has already reviewed multiple times. No alerts, no problems, no variations from the expected baseline. Everything continues in its steady state, requiring nothing beyond ongoing observation. The cleaning cart appears once more, Rosa making another pass through the terminal. Michael watches her work from a distance, notes the methodical way she moves from gate to gate, emptying bins, wiping down surfaces, ensuring that tomorrow's travelers will encounter a clean space. Her work is more obviously necessary than his, more tangibly connected to maintaining standards that people will actually notice and appreciate. Yet both roles matter in their own way, both contribute to the functioning of this larger organism that is the airport. Both fill necessary positions in the overnight operation. Michael understands this intellectually. Even if emotionally he sometimes questions whether his presence truly makes a difference. He continues walking, completing another circuit, beginning another. The hours accumulate slowly but steadily, moving him toward the end of his shift, toward the moment when he will hand off responsibility to the day crew and make his way home through morning traffic. The T is just beginning to build. For now, though, he remains here, moving through the quiet terminal, observing its unchanging details existing in this space that feels suspended between yesterday and tomorrow, belonging fully to neither. The airport continues around him. The lights remain steady. The ventilation hums on. The departure boards hold their information about flights that will happen hours from now. And Michael walks, patient and present, accompanying the night through its slow progression toward dawn.